So let's look into the bill the Senate approved in a unanimous vote last night. Kasie Hunt has been standing by. Now, I believe Mitch McConnell is sending the Senate home, but could be calling folks back sooner. What's in the bill?
So, Mika, just to pick up where Joe left off and to give people the good news here, at the end of the day, those Republicans, Lindsey Graham, others who were talking about that unemployment insurance program, setting aside the fact that they fundamentally misunderstand unemployment, which is that you have to be involuntarily unemployed to receive it at all in the first place, they lost the argument. This is going to be in the bill. Americans are on track to get, if you filed your tax returns, if you have given, put the information in for direct deposit to get your tax refund, you will, within weeks, be eligible to receive payments directly from the government. If you make $75,000 a year or less, or $150,000 if you're a family, you get some benefit up to about $200,000 as a family. Those checks are coming because they finally did get it together and they passed this bill on the floor of the Senate. It still does need to pass the House of Representatives, but the level of urgency, the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has already signed off on this. So I think that's really the most important thing for people to remember, that there is some sort of help coming. What we don't know is whether it's going to be enough, whether it can be enough, and whether it is depends a lot on exactly what we've been talking about all morning. It depends now on the decisions and the messages that this president sends to the American people. At the end of the day, he can't order any particular state to lift lockdowns. Those decisions are up to the governors. So to a certain extent, people can trust their governors to take care of them. But there are a lot of people in America, as we learned the hard way when he started talking about some of these experimental drugs and people started looking through their homes, and one couple had, the husband died because they took something that was wrong because they thought the president told them to do it. His words do have power, and whether or not this bill actually helps people depends on how he handles it going forward.
Whether it's enough or, Joe, soon enough, like for health workers in New York City, hospitals in New York City, and businesses that support them, suppliers, it's not going to be soon enough. Well, anything that gets to them, he should be mobilizing the National Act that would allow him to get things uniformly directed to specific places and organized on a national level to make things as quick as possible. He's not doing it. And for many people, specifically in places like New York City, the aid that is coming is not going to be soon enough for them and for their lives.
It's confounding why the president doesn't use the powers that he has. After we've heard him for 2 years talk about how he has unlimited powers because of Article 2, he's not even using the legitimate powers that he has to beat this virus. But Kasie, I heard yesterday that unless you get your refund electronically from the IRS, you could wait up to 4 months. Is that accurate?
So it's a little bit hard to know, Joe. They are trying to get around that. They have put a section in the bill that would let the IRS send out debit cards to people, which is a lot faster than cutting a check, just a prepaid debit card. But if you haven't filed your tax returns in the past because you felt you didn't need to, or you're behind, you may face a bigger delay. It really is just a question of how fast the office that processes these things can get the checks out the door. They have to write them on paper, and that could take potentially months. So, if you're looking at this, if you're somebody who really needs this, one thing that you should do today, right now, is file your taxes for this year, for 2019. Try and put that bank account information in there, because if you do that, then the IRS will be able to put you in that pool that pushes these out fastest. I mean, I think, Joe, it's important. Yes, it's hard, it's difficult, but everyone, I think, wants these payments out the door. This is not an effort to delay things, and they are trying as best they can to come up with mechanisms that will let that happen as quickly as possible. But the scale of this is just unbelievable. I mean, so many of our colleagues, friends, coworkers, I mean, we are all, touched by this. We all know people who are suddenly having a very, very, very hard time. And so, hopefully this is something, but people should, try to do that, take those steps as quickly as they can, and try to get to the front of that line.
Well, I mean, of course, it makes sense. You have to file taxes for the federal government to know how much money you've made in the past several years. There just can't be that much of a discrepancy between those who have filed electronically and those who have not filed electronically. Yesterday, we heard that it was a 4-month delay, but Casey, the idea of the debit cards, perhaps that'll expedite it for people who haven't got a refund electronically. Yeah, Casey Hunt, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your reporting.
We'll show you the new ad from Priorities USA that the Trump campaign doesn't want anyone to see. Plus, just a few months ago, our next guest was in Wuhan discussing health issues with Chinese officials. We'll talk about his research at Harvard and what it means for this pandemic and potentially the next one. There's also a next wave expected, also ahead. He says New York is the canary in the coal mine, and his state is right behind. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy joins our discussion. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.